Good morning and welcome to today's Global Economic Report. I'm Siti Nur Fadhilatul Khasanah. Today, we are examining one of the most closely watched indicators of Indonesia's economic health, the rupiah exchange rate. The value of a country's currency often seems like a concern reserved for economists, investors, or financial institutions. Yet in reality, fluctuation in the rupiah reach far beyond the trading floor, from the price of imported goods and industrial production to inflation and household budget. The exchange rate quietly shapes almost every corner of economic life. This is not a Western concern. As of mid-2026, the rupiah has been trading above 18,000 rupiah per US dollar, hovering near some of its biggest levels in years. In response, Bank Indonesia took an unusual step, an off-schedule policy meeting in June 2026, where it raised its benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points to 5.5%. Alongside similar increases to its deposit and lending facility rates, this followed an even larger, unexpected 50 basis point hike back in May, marking the central bank first rate hike since 2024. The trigger was a familiar one, escalating tensions in the Middle East, which pushed global oil prices higher and rattled emerging market currencies, the rupiah among them. Although Bank Indonesia has consistently emphasized that the country's economic fundamentals remain resilient, keeping the currency stable has become an increasingly delicate balancing act in a world defined by geopolitical shock and unpredictable capital flows. This raises an important question. When the rupiah falls, who really pays the price? To better understand this issue, let's examine the impact of a weaker rupiah from three different perspectives. The first perspective is household purchasing power. For most Indonesians, a weakening rupiah doesn't arrive a single dramatic event. Ordinary households don't buy or sell foreign currency on a daily basis. So the impact tends to creep in quietly through the price tags on everyday goods. Indonesia continues to depend heavily on imported raw materials, fuels, medicines, industrial equipment, and consumer products. When the rupiah depreciates against the US dollar, and especially when the depreciation coincides with rising global oil prices, as we have seen throughout much of 2026, the cost of importing these goods climbs. Businesses facing higher input costs often pass that burden on the consumers through higher prices. This year, that pressure has been visible in the numbers. Indonesia's annual inflation rate climbed sharply in early 2026, reaching its highest levels in nearly 3 years, driven in part by currency weakness and higher energy costs. For a household whose income hasn't grown at the same pace, this means a shrinking ability to afford the same basket of goods it could a year ago. Rice, cooking oil, fuel, and imported medicine all become quiet battlegrounds where the exchange rate is fought, even though most families never see a single foreign transaction themselves. The second perspective is Bazanis competitiveness. The exchange rate doesn't just shape household budget, it reshapes the strategies decision companies make every day. For Bazanis that depend on imported machinery, components, or raw materials, a weaker rupiah increases production costs and squeezes profit margins. Manufacturers may respond by raising prices, delaying investment plans, or working to improve efficiency simply to stay afloat. In sectors like manufacturing and retail, where margins are already thin, sustained currency weakness can mean the difference between expansion and survival. However, the picture is not entirely negative. Export-oriented industries can actually benefit from a weaker currency. because Indonesia's products become comparatively cheaper for overseas buyers. Sectors such as palm oil, textile, and certain manufactured goods may see improved competitiveness in internal markets, which can encourage stronger demand from abroad. The real challenge for Indonesia's economy then lies in balancing these two forces, protecting import-dependent students from rising costs while helping export-oriented sectors capture the opportunities that currency weakness can create. The third perspective is economic stability. Maintaining exchange rate stability has become one of Bank Indonesia's central responsibilities, and 2026 has tested that mandate more than most years in recent memory. Beyond interest rate adjustment, Bank Indonesia has rolled out additional measures aimed at strengthening rupiah, including incentives designed to attract foreign investment and reduce excessive volatility in the currency market. At the same time, the government continues to push for stronger downstream industries, greater domestic production capacity, and reduced dependence of imported goods. Strategies intended to make that economy less vulnerable to currency swings in the first place. These efforts matter because exchange rate stability cannot rely on intervention alone. Bank Indonesia's own projection suggests in the rupiah may gradually strengthen toward the range of 16,800 rupiah to 17,500 rupiah per US dollar by 2027, supported by continued economic growth expected between 5.1 and 5.9%. But reaching that point will depend on more than monetary policy. It will depend on whether Indonesia can build a more diversified, resilient, and self-sufficient economic base over the years ahead. The weakening rupiah is not simply a story about currency markets or number on a trading screen. It reflects the complex relationship between global economic developments, from Middle East conflict to shifting oil prices and international interest rate decisions, and the everyday realities faced by Balinese consumers and policymakers here at home. While fluctuations in exchange rates are an inevitable part of today's interconnected global economy, Indonesia's ability to respond effectively will determine how resilient its economy remains in the years ahead. Ultimately, the real question is not whether the rupiah will continue to fluctuate, it is whether Indonesia is prepared to minimize the risks, seize the opportunities, and transform global uncertainty into long-term economic strength. That concludes today's report. Thank you for watching. I'm Siti Nur Fadhilatul Khasanah, signing out. Until next time.